Mercedes Mone, formerly known as Sasha Banks, has made her official debut in New Japan Pro Wrestling, but what has AEW talent been told about the possibility of the former WWE Women's Champion coming in to All Elite Wrestling? She also has posed with an AEW tag team today inside the Tokyo Dome. Speaking of AEW, CM Punk, former AEW World Champion, has shared an interesting Instagram story highlighting his success in AEW. Kenny Omega wins the IWGP US Championship at Wrestle Kingdom 17. Dax Harwood has been pretty controversial on his podcast recently, and how much longer will that podcast be around for? Jeff Jarrett blasts Max Caster in what is some people saying is a shoot, other people saying is a work. What do you think? Wrestle Kingdom 17 got an update on the fans in attendance at that show, and Dynamite has some new changes tonight, and Tony Khan has teased what they could be. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of All Elite Wrestling. And let's start off talking about Mercedes Mone. Now, if you're not familiar with that name, that's because that was the name debuted by the former Sasha Banks today at Wrestle Kingdom 17 inside the Tokyo Dome. Of course, Sasha Banks officially exiting WWE. But the question is, will the former Sasha Banks, now known as Mercedes Mone, be All Elite this time next week? Well, the presumed unveiling of the post-WWE iteration of Mercedes Varnado, the now former Sasha Banks, was just hours away last night when a big report came out about her possible future within AEW, and that was, of course, at New Japan's Pro Wrestling's Wrestle Kingdom 17 event. Naturally, as it came down to the wire prior to the event today, some additional details about her situation got reported on Tuesday night, with Sean Ross Sapp hashing out the details on Fightful Select. Most notably, Sean Ross Sapp reported that all of the AEW talent that he's spoken to in trying to suss out if Varnado will be Saraya's mystery tag team partner on next Wednesday's edition of Dynamite have been, quote, no-sold when they asked if that was the case. They were all under the impression that Varnado is indeed, though, the mystery partner, particularly with how nobody's denying it. When they're asking around, they're getting no-sold, but nobody is explicitly saying, no, it's not her. But one of the talents who spoke to Fightful made sure to note that since she wasn't clear of her WWE contract until Sunday, it's entirely possible that if there is a deal, it's not official just yet, which is a really good point to point out that even with New Japan Pro Wrestling, Mercedes Mone, the deal was in principle in November. When that story first got put out there that Sasha Banks is going to New Japan, she's leaving WWE, she's going to be inside the Tokyo Dome on January 4th, she's going to be confronting IWGP Women's Champion Kairi. That was all a deal in principle, and it was largely, from what we have seen and what's been reported and put out there, it was largely a verbal deal because technically the former Sasha Banks couldn't put pen to paper. Now she would be free, willing and able to put pen to paper on an AEW deal if she is indeed presented with one. And the general feeling is backstage within All Elite Wrestling right now that indeed Mercedes Mone will be Saraya's tag team partner next week inside the Kia Forum in Los Angeles for that big edition of Dynamite. Now, in an additional wrinkle that Sapp added, and this is quite interesting, we kind of touched on this earlier today in the Mercedes Mone New Japan Pro Wrestling debut video that we did here on the channel. One member of the WWE creative team told him that until news broke of Varnado and New Japan making an informal deal for her to appear for the promotion and the sister promotion Stardom in 2023, they were actually of the understanding that she would be available to be booked in the Royal Rumble later this month. That obviously, though, changed after it became clear that the New Japan deal was a reality, but there were still people within WWE until very, very recently that thought she was going to come back, that thought she was going to be in the Royal Rumble, or she at least was going to be returning to WWE in 2023. We don't really know the situation when it comes to her former Women's Tag Team Championship partner, Naomi. We do know that Naomi was in Tokyo. She was in Japan to support Mercedes Mone for her Wrestle Kingdom 17 appearance, but as far as her WWE future, I believe it was Brian Alvarez that was saying the expectation is that she will be going back to WWE, but at the same time, the expectation once was that Sasha Banks was going to be going back to WWE, and officially last night, Sasha Banks, or Mercedes Mone rather, or Mercedes Varnado, waved goodbye to Sasha Banks and said hello today to Mercedes Mone. As I mentioned, Bernardo challenged the winner of the IWGP Women's Championship match at Wrestle Kingdom, that being between Kairi and Tam Nakano. And Kairi, of course, who is still the champion, was confronted and attacked by Mercedes Mone, defeated Mayu Itawani in the tournament final to become the first champion in the historic X Over and New Japan Stardom joint event on November 20. So, of course, that's what she's going to be doing. Now, when it comes to what she's going to be doing in New Japan going forward, she's made a bit of a bold claim about her plans moving forward. Mercedes Mone, formerly known as Sasha Banks, has made a bold claim about her upcoming title bout following her New Japan Pro Wrestling debut. The former WWE superstar made an appearance at New Japan Wrestle Kingdom 17 to confront the IWGP Women's Champion Kairi. After baiting the champ with a handshake, Mercedes dropped Kairi before challenging her to a bout at New Japan's Battle in the Valley event in February. Speaking with the press, though, following her debut, Mercedes pointed out that she and Kairi have had a past, believing that their bout has the potential to be the Stardom promotion's best match ever. Mercedes said, quote, "I'm interested in many wrestlers, but the reason I decided to fight Kairi-san in the first place is because we have a past. February 18th, San Jose, New Japan. I think it will be the best match in Stardom history, so please look forward to it." Mercedes and Kairi, most notably, of course, crossed paths within WWE, with Mercedes and Bayley feuding with Kairi and Asuka in 2020 during the pandemic. The duo faced off once in singles action on a July 2020 episode of Raw in an empty WWE Performance Center during the aforementioned pandemic. That match didn't have a finish as Bayley and Asuka got into the ring and started a 2-on-2 brawl which led to a tag team match. But Mercedes Mone, of course, is officially in AEW, and the question is, will she be in New Japan Pro Wrestling, rather? The question will be, will she be going to AEW? Now, one person who was also there to support Mercedes Mone in Japan was WWE superstar Bayley. And Bayley has taken to social media to react to the New Japan debut of Mercedes Mone, formerly known as WWE Sasha Banks. Following weeks of speculation, as I mentioned, Mercedes confronted IWGP Women's Champion Kairi following her bout against Tam Nakano. After baiting Kairi with a handshake, as I mentioned, Mercedes dropped her before making the challenge and the announcement she would be challenging for the title in a future title bout. Bayley took to Twitter following Mercedes' appearance to share a one-word reaction to the segment. Mercedes' former tag team partner tweeted, quote, "Monet." Now, Banks' ex-Team BAD stablemate Tamina also reacted to Banks' appearance, sharing an emoji. Bayley is reportedly in Japan with Mercedes to support her. Trinity Fatu, also known as Naomi, reportedly also traveled to Japan ahead of the Boss's New Japan debut. Of course, this was Mercedes' first wrestling outing since walking out of WWE on the May 16 Raw taping with Naomi. Again, it was reported back in December by Dave Meltzer that Naomi originally planned to return to WWE with Bernardo, but of course now Mone is in New Japan, so as far as her future, we don't know. We still don't really know. As far as her future with AEW, the expectation is that she will be All Elite, but again, we still don't know. Now, as far as Mone interacting with AEW talent, Wrestle Kingdom 17 was very historic because it was the first ever show that I can recall that featured talent from AEW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, and WWE, because of course Carl Anderson wrestled on that show. But AEW stars Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler of FTR have shared a reunion photo with WWE's Bayley and former WWE superstar Mercedes Mone, now New Japan star Mercedes Mone. Here's a look at the photo that was shared on social media. You can see it right there. Of course, it's recreating a photo that was taken actually in the past. Now, it's actually quite interesting because they're all four are very, very close. FTR did appear on the show at Wrestle Kingdom 17. They were defeated by Bishamon, losing their IWGP Tag Team title. So within the space of about a month, they've lost the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Championships, they've lost the IWGP Tag Team Championships, they've lost the AAA Tag Team Championships, and they also lost a match for the AEW World Tag Team Championships. As I mentioned, they took to social media, though, to post some photos of what they call the She-Vival. One was a throwback photo of Howard and Wheeler, Mone and Bayley, while the other was a new reunion pic with Banks in her New Japan entrance gear. Howard recently explained that the four would call themselves She-Vival, a play on FTR's former team name The Revival, when they all held tag team gold at the same time in WWE. The Friends have been working for different promotions since April 2020, when Harwood and Wheeler were released by WWE. Mone last appeared, as I mentioned, for WWE in May of last year, with Bayley being the only member of the group still to compete for the WWE. So certainly, as I mentioned, an interesting photo there. As I mentioned, when it comes to FTR, the team have lost all of their gold, dropping the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championships to the Briscoes at Final Battle, the AAA Tag Team titles to Dragon Lee and Dralistico and Noche de Campeones, and the IWGP Tag Team Gold to Bishamon today at Wrestle Kingdom 17 as well. Let's move on and talk about CM Punk. CM Punk has also taken to social media and has flaunted the success of his All Elite Wrestling run. For the second time in less than a week, CM Punk is getting increasingly vocal about AEW in his Instagram activity. First of all, last Thursday, he replied to a post about Dax Harwood's plea for Punk and the Elite to, quote, make it work so they can all do business together with one simple word: duh. Now, yesterday, he's added more fuel to the fire with a post to his disappearing Instagram story. In the story post, which we can get on the screen right now, we can put it here. There you go. There's the Instagram post, which will drop off his page around 2:35 p.m. Eastern Time today. Punk shared an image of a graph displaying data collected by Brandon Thurston /WrestleNomics, showing the most watched videos on AEW's YouTube channel that were uploaded in 2022. The two top videos feature the former AEW World Champion, his August 10 return from breaking his foot, and the last few minutes of the February 9 Punk Jon Moxley vs FTR match that set up Punk getting a rematch against MJF. The fourth also features Punk, though not in the video title, the full August 24 Punk Moxley match to unify the two versions of the AEW World Championship. The rest of the listed videos feature Bryan Danielson or Jeff Hardy in some form, with just one exception: Keith Lee's surprising debut. It should be noted, though, that the list does not rank cumulative views at the time that Thurston put it together. It goes by view count scraped at specific numbers of hours since the video was first uploaded. This is quite arguably the fairest comparison, but as they sit right now, Wheeler Yuta, joining the Blackpool Combat Club, has the most overall with 6.4 million, with Punk Moxley at FTR in second place at 5.1 million, and Jeff Hardy's debut in third at 3.2 million. All the others on the list are currently under 3 million as of this recording right now. Punk has been sitting out to recover from surgery to repair a torn left triceps muscle, an injury he suffered at All Out in September. He's gone almost completely unmentioned on AEW programming since then due to the fallout from the brawl between him and the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega and Ace Steel on the same night. As far as what he's going to be doing going forward, I don't know. I saw an interesting stat that said that in 2022, CM Punk, by all accounts, again, had some of the top most viewed videos. He had some of the top rated segments on the show and the second most merchandise in AEW. The highest, that would be Danhausen, because Danhausen actually sells a ton of merch. So you can make your own decision about CM Punk's success or his ability to draw, because I know you'll let me know in the comment section below. Kenny Omega, speaking of the Elite, Kenny Omega is the new IWGP United States Champion. After 4 years away from New Japan Pro Wrestling, Kenny Omega returned at Wrestle Kingdom 17 and reclaimed the IWGP US Heavyweight Championship. After a long back and forth bout with Will Ospreay, Omega hit the former champion with Kota Ibushi's Kamigoe, followed by his own patented One-Winged Angel to pick up the win and the championship in the process. The returning star made his way to the ring to the tune of One-Winged Angel, the Final Fantasy VII boss's Sephiroth Sveem, that is the source of his finisher's name. Alongside the music, Omega was also wearing a long coat reminiscent of the character. Omega's last New Japan match was 4 years ago at Wrestle Kingdom 13, where he lost the IWGP Heavyweight Championship to Hiroshi Tanahashi. Omega left the company afterwards to help found the fledgling AEW alongside the rest of the Elite. The victory for Omega begins his second reign with the US Heavyweight Championship, having first served as the title's inaugural champion from 2017 to 2018. Ospreay was the champion for 206 days, the third longest in the title's history. Omega's future with the championship and New Japan itself remains to be seen, but his next match will see him shooting for more championship gold alongside the Young Bucks. On the January 11th episode of AEW Dynamite in Los Angeles, the Elite will be finishing their best of 7 series with the Death Triangle for the AEW World Trios Championships. The series will be settled in an Escalera de la Muerte match, which translates to English as Ladder of Death. Now, as far as his former tag team partner Kota Ibushi actually sent a message to Kenny Omega, a public message, wishing him luck before the match. In a tweet made on January 4th, Ibushi had a simple message for his friend and former partner saying, quote, "Kenny, good luck, just don't get hurt, that's all. Only win," Ibushi wrote. He followed it up with the hashtags never run away, never lose, and never give up. The tweet ended with the Elite's eponymous slogan, "Change the world." Also attached to the tweet is a photo of Ibushi alongside Omega and the Young Bucks from 2018 adorned in their Golden Elite t-shirts. Ibushi himself is in a very interesting position regarding his wrestling future at the moment. His contract is still with New Japan, but that's set to expire this month, following a turbulent period between him and the company. The Japanese star has been out of action since a shoulder injury he suffered against Kazuchika Okada in the final match of the G1 Climax in October of 2021, where Ibushi lands following the end of his New Japan contract remains to be seen. But it seems he has closed the door on a possible signing with AEW, as of right now, saying he wants to be a bit more open. But we'll have to wait and see. Could just maybe be kayfabing it, because it is pro wrestling after all. We spoke about Dax Howard earlier, and he's been in the news a lot recently with the launch of his podcast, but there's a feeling the podcast actually might not last that much longer. Dax Howard, as I mentioned, has been the center of quite a bit of attention lately, but it's not so much regarding his impressive slate of in-ring work across 2022, as it is because of the debut of his FTR with Dax Howard podcast. Being a close friend of CM Punk, Howard's first episode focused heavily on Punk's time in All Elite Wrestling, in particular his desire to have Punk back in AEW following the post-All Out backstage incident. Punk, of course, has not been around AEW since. In fact, Howard's podcast is so on the mind of others within the wrestling industry that Jeff Jarrett chose to talk about it in the latest episode of his My World with Jeff Jarrett podcast. And we'll talk about Jarrett a bit later on. This is what Jarrett noted, quote, "There are going to be some headlines coming out of that bad boy, there's no doubt in my mind." His co-host Conrad Thompson chimed in saying, quote, "By the time I got around to listening to it, I said to myself, Self, could they really be talking about all of this where people can hear? I can't believe it." Indications are that a lot of people backstage in AEW were none too pleased by Howard's candor on his first episode. That's according to Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez, though, and again, we know where their sources lie. "It's kind of unspoken when you talk to Tony Schiavone or Bruce Pritchard. We don't talk about current stuff," Thompson explained. "My phone rang off the hook all of Wednesday, and early in the morning, after the 38 texts about it, I thought, I guess I gotta listen to this," Thompson continued. "I don't know how much longer he's going to be allowed to do this, but I guess there's another one coming out Thursday." Given the tenuous state of things behind the scenes in AEW since the all-out kerfuffle, Thompson sees it as only a matter of time before someone speaks to Howard about the show and the plug gets pulled, saying, quote, "I feel like that FTR podcast is a dead man walking." Now, Thompson is the ultimate marketing specialist, so when he says a dead man walking, could it be replaced by something else? Who knows? Look, ultimately, FTR, their contracts expire in a few months, so even if it got cancelled now, it would come back in a couple of months anyway. Now, speaking of Jeff Jarrett, we have a situation where a work may have been turned into a shoot and may have been turned back into a work, or it still might be a shoot. We're in very much Vince Russo territory here. Now, with the latest rap video, the Acclaimed lit a fire under Jeff Jarrett heading into their tag team title match tonight on AEW Dynamite. During the diss track, Caster took several digs at Jarrett, including a shot about his wife Karen and her ex-husband Kurt Angle, referencing the trio's issues in TNA back in the 2000s when Jeff and Karen became a couple. This week, Jarrett used the platform as part of his podcast, My World, to fire back at Platinum Max Caster, revealing how angry he was to hear that his wife was once again bearing the brunt of a situation that happened over a decade ago. Quote, "I've heard a bunch of old-timers live by the creed, don't mess with my family, don't mess with my money," Jarrett stated. Max did both. He messed with my family and my money. Karen is a personality. The whole idea that I'm stealing Kurt's wife, that is a generation removed. And I want to set the record straight here. I've kept my mouth shut 10, 12 years for two reasons. Kira Angle and Cody Angle, he continued. They're old enough now, they know the absolute truth. But me stealing Kurt's wife is the furthest thing from the truth. The fact of the matter is, when we hired Kurt Angle, me, Dixie Carter, because she's part of this story, they were legally separated. And they weren't living under the same roof. Enough is enough. We're 13 years removed from this. Kurt Angle also shared his frustrated thoughts on Twitter in a recently removed tweet that said, quote, "When you got to use my name to get heat after 12 years with the hashtag MoveOn added." Reacting to the Olympic gold medalist's words, Jarrett also relayed that he believes Angle is also sick and tired of this, but that he shouldn't have gotten involved in what's happening in AEW. The Last Outlaw did, however, contribute that if Angle thinks he needs his name to get heat, he's delusional. Jarrett did reserve remarks for Caster, though, threatening a receipt on Wednesday night's show and telling one half of the current AEW Tag Team Champions that he went too far and opened up a can of worms he might live to regret. Now, since then, his tag team partner Anthony Bowens, Max Caster, has said, if there's real receipts, then I'll fight back. I don't know if that's really the case. I'm not sure if that's really the case. Again, to my point, it's just, it feels, again, with the pro wrestling situation, when you've been watching it long enough, stuff feels like workish, you know what I mean? And this feels like a work situation, in my opinion. I might be wrong, but that's what it kind of feels like to me. We'll have to wait and see. I doubt Jeff Jarrett is going to lose his job over this and be unprofessional, so we'll have to wait and see. Wrestle Kingdom, of course, was today. We got an update on the attendance for the show. Today's event attracted 26,085 attendees to the Tokyo Dome, according to figures provided by New Japan Pro Wrestling statistician Chris Samsa via Twitter. Wrestle Kingdom 17 is broken up into 2 nights, with the second evening set for January 21 at the Yokohama Arena. The last Wrestle Kingdom held prior to the pandemic, Wrestle Kingdom's 14 in 2020, saw a tick over 40,000 people show up for its opening night, with just over 30,000 showing up for night 2, resulting in a combined total of 70,071 wrestling fans in the Tokyo Dome. Again, I think this is probably due to a return from the pandemic, so that's the numbers for today's show as well. Finally, tonight will feature a new version of AEW Dynamite on TBS. Some changes, possibly a new stage, certainly new graphics. Now, when it comes to a change in the music as well, that's going to be quite interesting too. Now, when it comes to changes and what's going to be happening in the future, Tony Khan has hinted that there's going to be a sort of grid matrix and the flow really well, especially with the futuristic green look of Revolution. There's also a report that's come out about a change in music as well. Now, if you expected if the Light the Fuse theme would be switched to something different, the answer appears to be yes. Kind of, according to Fightful Select. Light the Fuse will remain in place. However, it will come with a few changes, with a remixed edition of the song being used moving forward. These AEW production changes come under the watchful eye of new Senior Vice President and co-executive producer Mike Mansory. The former WWE producer, who was hired by AEW in early December, has approached his new role with the idea that while there's work to be done, it is work that should help improve the overall brand. Amidst all those alterations, it appears that AEW's announced teams will stay consistent, with no plans in place to change the voices calling the action in AEW's various shows. So there's going to be changes, of course. Once we get any more better looks at it, we'll let you know here on the channel. But there you go, guys. That's the latest AEW news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Let me know your thoughts on today's WWE news stories, WWE AEW news stories in the comment section below. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.